They say, life begins at birth. That the moment you open your eyes, your story has already started. But what if that isn't true? What if most people spend years, even decades, not really living, but performing, adapting, surviving? What if life doesn't begin when you are born, but when you finally meet the version of yourself that was buried under expectations, fear, and quiet compromises? You might look around and see people moving forward. Careers, relationships, milestones. Yet something inside you feels unfinished, unclear. Why does it feel like you've been present in your own life, but never truly there? This is not a failure. It is something far more human. A silent process, almost no one talks about. And once it begins, everything changes. Let's begin. This chapter explores the subtle feeling of being present but not truly alive. It highlights how people live on autopilot, disconnected from their authentic self. It connects deeply with the viewer's internal confusion and emotional numbness. There is a strange kind of emptiness that doesn't look like emptiness at all. On the outside, everything seems functional. You wake up. You move. You respond. You exist. But somewhere deeper, something feels missing. My character stands in a crowded street, people passing by, conversations blending into noise. His arms are crossed, that familiar smirk on his face, but his eyes aren't following anything. It's as if he's there, but not really there. Have you ever felt that? Like your body is moving through life, but your mind is somewhere else entirely? Like you are watching your own life from a distance, not fully inside it. It doesn't happen suddenly. It builds, slowly, like dust settling on forgotten furniture. At first, it feels like tiredness, then distraction, then silence. A quiet disconnection. My character now sits at a table, staring at an untouched cup of coffee. The steam has already faded. His fingers lightly tap the surface, not impatient, not anxious, just absent. There is no urgency, because something inside him has already slowed down. And that's the strange part. Disconnection doesn't always feel painful. Sometimes, it feels neutral, flat. Like emotions are no longer sharp, just distant echoes. You laugh when you're supposed to laugh. You nod when you're supposed to understand. You respond, but you don't feel fully engaged. And no one notices, because from the outside, you look fine. My character walks through a park. Children are running, someone is laughing loudly nearby, leaves moving with the wind. He pauses for a moment, watches everything, then slowly looks away, as if none of it quite reaches him. Why does this happen? Why does a person slowly become a stranger to their own life? The answer is not dramatic. It is not sudden. It is gradual adaptation. You adjust to expectations. You learn what is acceptable. You filter parts of yourself, piece by piece, until one day, you are left with a version of yourself that fits into the world, but no longer feels like you. My character now stands in front of a mirror. His posture is confident, arms crossed, expression controlled. That same slight smirk. But his eyes pause, just for a second longer than usual, as if he's trying to recognize someone, and failing. This is the invisible disconnection. Not loud, not chaotic, not obvious, just a quiet distance between who you are and who you have become. And the most unsettling part? You can live like this for years, without realizing that something is missing, until one day, the silence inside you becomes impossible to ignore. This chapter dives into childhood conditioning, societal expectations, and identity formation. It explains how people unknowingly become versions of themselves shaped by approval, fear, and survival. You were not always this version of yourself. There was a time when your reactions were natural, your emotions were unfiltered, your choices instinctive, before the world slowly began to shape you. My character is now younger, standing in a softly lit room, reaching out toward something he seems curious about. His posture is open, unguarded. No crossed arms. No smirk. Just presence. And then, a voice. Not harsh. Not loud. Just enough to redirect. Don't do that. Be careful. That's not right. Small corrections. Almost invisible. But over time, they begin to accumulate. You learn what gets approval, and what gets silence. You learn what makes people smile, and what makes them uncomfortable. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to edit yourself. My character now sits at a desk, posture straighter than necessary, carefully adjusting his behavior. His hands rest still, as if movement itself needs permission. There's a certain kind of pressure that doesn't feel like pressure at all, because it's disguised as guidance, as care, as protection. And sometimes, it is. But even protection can have a cost. What parts of yourself did you quiet down, just to feel accepted? What emotions did you learn to hide, because they were inconvenient to others? You weren't trying to lose yourself. You were trying to belong. My character stands among a small group of people now. He subtly mirrors their posture, their expressions. His smirk appears again, but this time it feels practiced, not spontaneous. This is how identity begins to split. There is the version of you that feels, and the version of you that performs. And the more you are rewarded for the performance, the further you move away from what is real. It becomes automatic. You don't question it. You don't notice it. Because it works. It keeps things smooth, predictable, safe. But safety can be deceptive. Because what protects you on the outside can slowly erase you on the inside. My character now walks through a hallway lined with closed doors. Each door slightly different. He pauses at one, reaches for the handle, then stops, as if unsure. Which version of himself is behind it? This is the self you were taught. Not false, but not entirely true either. A carefully shaped identity, built from expectations, approval, and quiet adjustments. And the longer you live inside it, the harder it becomes to remember who you were before all of this began. This chapter uncovers the internal tension between who you are and who you pretend to be. It explores emotional resistance, overthinking, and the discomfort of confronting your true self. At some point, something inside you begins to resist. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle tension that you can't quite explain. My character sits alone in a dimly lit room. His arms are crossed again, but this time, not out of confidence. It feels like protection. His foot taps lightly against the floor, as if something inside him is restless. Everything on the outside is still working. Life continues. Conversations happen. Days pass. But internally, there's friction. Have you ever felt like you're living two lives at once? One that people see, and one that you quietly carry inside? One that fits, and one that feels true. The problem is, they don't always align. My character now stands in front of two mirrors placed at slight angles. Each reflection shows him slightly different. Same body, same posture, but different expressions. One controlled, one uncertain. And he looks between them, as if trying to decide which one is real. This is where overthinking begins. Not because your mind is broken, but because something inside you is trying to reconnect. Every decision becomes heavier. Every choice feels slightly off. You start asking questions you never asked before. Why did I say that? Why did I agree to this? Is this really what I want, or just what I've learned to want? And there are no immediate answers. Only discomfort. My character walks through a quiet street at night. Streetlights stretch long shadows behind him. He slows down, then stops, as if unsure which direction to take. Because for the first time, moving forward doesn't feel automatic anymore. And that can feel terrifying. Because the version of you that you've been living as is familiar, predictable, safe. But the version of you that feels real is unknown, uncertain, unstructured. So what do most people do? They go back. Back to what feels easier. Back to what feels accepted. Back to the identity that doesn't ask too many questions. My character turns slightly, as if about to walk back the way he came. But he pauses. Just for a moment. Because something inside him doesn't want to go back anymore. And that's where the conflict deepens. You begin to notice the gap between your words and your feelings, between your actions and your truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. My character now sits again, but this time leaning forward, elbows on his knees, looking down at his hands. Not distracted, not absent, present, uncomfortable, but aware. This is the quiet inner conflict. Not visible to others. Not easy to explain, but deeply real. It is the moment where your old self starts to feel too small, and your real self starts to feel too important to ignore. And from here, there are only two paths. Return to what is familiar, or move toward something you don't fully understand yet. This chapter captures the turning point, when awareness begins. It explains how small realizations slowly dissolve illusions and create space for authenticity. Awareness rarely arrives as a loud revelation. It doesn't knock on the door, or announce itself. It seeps in, slowly, quietly, like light entering a room that has been closed for too long. My character stands near a window, soft morning light falling across his face. His arms are no longer crossed. His posture is still, but different. Less guarded, more open. For the first time, he's not trying to control how he looks. He's just there. And something inside him is noticing. Not judging. Not fixing. Just noticing. Have you ever had a moment where everything felt the same, but you felt different? Where nothing externally changed, but internally, something shifted? That's how it begins. A quiet awareness. My character now walks slowly through a familiar street, the same one he has walked many times before. But today, his pace is slower. His gaze lingers. He notices details he once ignored, the texture of the walls, the movement of the wind, the rhythm of footsteps. As if he's seeing it for the first time. Because awareness doesn't change the world. It changes how you experience it. And with that, illusions begin to fade. The identity you once held so tightly starts to feel optional. The expectations, less absolute. The need to perform, less convincing. My character pauses in front of a reflective surface, not to check his appearance, but to observe. His expression softens. The smirk is gone now, not replaced with sadness, but with something more honest, neutral, real. This is where something important happens. You begin to separate what is truly yours from what was given to you. Thoughts, reactions, beliefs, all of it becomes visible. And visibility changes everything. Because once you see something clearly, you can no longer live inside it blindly. My character sits on a quiet bench, watching people pass by. But this time, he isn't detached. He isn't lost. He's present. Not because everything makes sense, but because he is no longer avoiding himself. And that changes the experience entirely. But awareness comes with a cost. Clarity can feel uncomfortable, because illusions, even if limiting, are familiar. And truth, even if freeing, can feel uncertain. There is no going back now. Not fully. Because once you begin to see yourself clearly, you also begin to see how much of your life was never truly yours. My character slowly stands up. His movement is calm, intentional. No hesitation this time. Not because he has all the answers, but because he has stopped running from the questions. And that is where life quietly begins to return. This chapter reflects on self-acceptance and inner alignment. It gently explores how life begins when you stop performing and start existing as your true self. Becoming yourself doesn't feel like becoming someone new. It feels like returning Not to who you were as a child, but to something even deeper. Something that was always there, beneath the noise. My character walks slowly along an open path. No rush. No performance. His steps are steady, not because the road is clear, but because he is no longer resisting it. There is a difference now. Not in what he's doing, but in how he exists. He is not trying to impress, not trying to fit, not trying to control every outcome. And strangely, nothing falls apart. Have you noticed that? That the world doesn't collapse. When you stop pretending. That people don't disappear. When you stop performing. That life continues, but feels different. Lighter. More real. My character now sits on the ground, leaning back slightly, looking up at the sky. His expression is calm, not overly happy, not overly serious. Just at ease. This is what alignment feels like. Not constant joy. Not perfect clarity. But the absence of inner conflict. You no longer feel split. Your words match your thoughts. Your actions match your feelings. And for the first time, you are not negotiating with yourself. There is no silent argument inside. No need to adjust, or filter, or shrink. Just presence. My character stands again, this time interacting naturally with his surroundings, running his hand lightly along a wall, pausing to observe something small, almost insignificant. Because now, he is not rushing through life. He is experiencing it. And that is where life begins. Not at birth. Not at success. Not at approval. But at recognition. The moment you see yourself clearly, and choose not to turn away. The moment you stop abandoning parts of yourself, just to feel accepted. The moment you allow yourself to exist, without constant correction. My character now walks forward, no hesitation, no looking back. Not because the past is gone, but because it no longer defines his direction. And that's the quiet truth most people never hear. You don't find yourself by searching harder. You find yourself by stopping everything that was never you. And what remains is not something you have to build. It's something you finally allow.